First one is, my friends and family say that I'm smart, but I fail to find success in work and separately entrepreneurship. I've been looking at trauma in my life and examine internally what is going on to cause me to not find the success I seek, and I think that I have a blind spot for trauma. I've been in therapy but have not gained anything substantive. I'm seeking to explore myself with psychedelics. The closest I get to a solution is Jordan Peterson's bit, which I'm paraphrasing. Take on the biggest thing you can manage and go to the places that appear darkest to you and seek answers there. Honestly, I think I'm open to the truth, but I have been searching for answers for decades about how and why I seem to self-sabotage and get into situations that limit me. I might not be smart, and it may be inherent and may not. Can Ben expand on the people that fit a similar profile he's talked to, and any better solutions than the Jordan Peterson's best advice?
I didn't understand that last piece about the profile.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe they just mean, maybe they accidentally omitted Charlie and then meant to say, can Charlie and Ben maybe use real-life examples that fit a similar character profile?
What is the character profile?
Just somebody who's self-sabotaging and is unsure if
they're just not smart enough, or if they're actively like cutting their own feet out from underneath them. Okay, so let's start with, you've gone to therapy and you've not gotten a lot out of it. Therapy, like I think a lot of medical stuff, especially, but you know what? There's anytime there's an asymmetry between your understanding of a subject and the practitioner, and the results can be soft in some ways. It's very tough to tell if you're working with someone good. And so that means that you can have therapists of wildly varying quality. And I've had a couple, and I can tell you that the good ones are so much better than the ones that are less talented. So it might be a therapist thing where you might do better with a different therapist or a different style of therapy, like one of the newfangled somatic therapies, or family systems therapy, which can sometimes be good for trauma, depending on what you're working with. So it might just be worth expanding the breadth of that. As for the trauma thing, one of the exercises that is in emotional mastery that I recommend is to start with a triggering incident, something where you reacted in a way that you sabotage yourself. Like, I don't know how you're doing it exactly, but let's say you got really angry at a superior and got yourself fired, just as an example. You would start with that feeling, lay down, close your eyes, feel that feeling, notice it in your body, which is a skill in and of itself. Watch it change and transform, feel it change and transform, and continue to ask yourself, as this is happening periodically, when was the time I felt this sensation earlier? And then this is a skill that you can develop, but you allow your mind and your body to offer up, oh, that's like in high school when I flipped out on my girlfriend and then she broke up with me, or whatever. And you ask that question a handful of times and go, when was the first time? And sometimes you can get to like core wounds is the idea. A time that this occurred in your life, a similar situation, and you have been psychologically reacting with the same intensity as that first time. And what can happen is that if you go back and you address that, you experience it, you allow the emotion to move through you, it can take some of the edge off of the intensity with which you self-sabotage by getting angry in the present and the future. So that's one thing to do. And then I didn't understand the expanding on profiles piece.
Well, I think he's talking about he or she is talking about last week when we talked about how we know people who will often self-sabotage. They're smart, Ivy League educated type people who just can't have success. And I think there's two types of self-sabotage.
Oh, we were talking about like financial self-sabotage.
Yes. So I think there's two types of self-sabotage. The first is what you talked about, which is you get really angry and you curse out a boss because your reaction is much stronger than the situation dictates. And that's because it's mirroring some sort of anger that you have from your childhood.
It's like a trauma issue.
But I also think there's a second kind, which is just trauma isn't the way to describe it in the traditional sense.
Is it like belief oriented?
It's something where, your dad was an artist, not yours, but the person I'm thinking of, your dad is an artist and has financial success, but just over the course of raising you really gets into your head that the most important thing in life is to create something beautiful. And so you don't want to do that, and you go and you try to be financially successful, but you constantly throw away good businesses and you can't figure out why. And then you realize that it's because you're trying to fulfill this dream that your dad laid out. And so it's not that you're...
I'm just going to put labels on this. One of them is you might call like a trauma response, and another is a limiting belief. Limiting beliefs tend to be easier to work through.
Correct. And so it's not that your dad, in this person's case, hit you or anything of that nature, but they gave you a blueprint to follow for success. And you think you have to follow this blueprint for success to get love. And it's leading you away from the things that your front brain wants to do to try to maximize wealth. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So that's totally different. And I think the most helpful thing to think about for that is it's either CBT or an exercise that's kind of similar to CBT, where you basically try to figure out, like, what do I associate with wealth? Mm-hmm. Do I think that wealth is tied to greed? Do I think that wealth is tied to bad people? Like, when I think of the rich, do I envy them? Do I feel like I belong there? Do I hate them? And trying to understand how you view those people is very helpful, because if you resent and hate the wealthy, you will subconsciously prevent yourself from becoming one of the wealthy, mm-hmm. because then you would have to resent and hate yourself.
Yeah.
So that's a different kind. It's not so much based on being beaten as a kid and having an over-exaggerated anger response because of it. It's just from negative associations that you acquired as a child from the beliefs of your parents.
So like the exercise that Ben sort of described is, in whatever way you're self-sabotaging, like, what would it mean if I did the opposite of this? Like, what would it mean about me? What would it mean about my life? What would it mean for the future if I did this? And you just want to free write. And if you see pop out in there things that you would obviously not want, like, it would mean that I'm selfish. It would mean that I am
low integrity.
You know, like, if you see things that you're obviously going to move away from, and those are baked into this process, you're going to go, oh shit, of course I'm not moving there. Like, I don't want to be low integrity.
But before you try to tell yourself why that's not true, or the fact that you don't believe it, the free writing is the important part, because the truth is it's in there inside you. And so you do the free writing exercise with no judgment, just to understand your actual beliefs and associations with wealth. And then you can go through the exercise of saying, well, in what ways could this not be true?
Yeah.
Like, wealthy people are immoral. Well, what if those wealthy people use their wealth to create great positive change in the world? Mm-hmm. And so then you can tweak your internal dream so first you do what's your belief system, then you write out how those negative things might not be true. You can reorient to, I'm going to try to create great wealth and use it for good.
Assuming that is a compelling, like, here's the good news. You're not trying to beat yourself. What you'll find out if this is the case is that your mind is steering you in the best direction. And you just got to get on the same page and be like, let's talk about, like, do you have accurate information about the world and expectations? Because, look, I'm all on board to go away from low integrity.
Yeah, exactly.
So if this is right, thank you for avoiding wealth my whole life. Let's check if that's the case. And so you're not trying to, like, beat your brain or talk it into submission. You're like, damn, I have this guidance system that is orienting me in the best direction. It just might not have updated its data.
Yeah, and my specifics here are getting a little washed because I'm mixing between this friend and Charlie, who both had similar situations. But in Charlie's example, just to go concrete, I think it was very helpful for you to go, okay, I'm going to remove my limiters, my self-imposed limiters on success, and then I'm just going to donate more to charity than anyone I know. Mm-hmm. And that switch, that decision, was what allowed you to become more successful.
Yeah, I think that was a big piece of it.
So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful. Hopefully that's helpful.
Well, I'm now overly expanding. Some people would find the argument compelling like, I know some rich people that aren't jerks. That wasn't enough for my internal guidance system. My internal guidance system was like, for whatever reason, it's just too selfish to have that much money sitting stagnant in a bank. And so the only way that I was able to get my internal guidance system on my side, I was like, what if we gave a lot of it away?
Yeah.
What if we locked in a percentage that had to leave? It's like, well, then that would get bigger and bigger. And it's like, well, you might have to even up that percentage as you get more money, because, you know, if Jeff Bezos gives away 10%, la-di-da, it's like, okay, what if we did that and the percentage went up? It's like, okay, but we still might need an absolute cap, at which point you're just a selfish SOB. And I was like, okay, we can have an absolute cap and an increasing scale that it'll go up to, and we'll talk later. I'm gonna go try to do this. So it's going to be personal to each individual. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.